Thanks for staying with us at STL Live. I'm Sarah Bernard, and my guest is Dr. Eboni January, who's the author of Educational Athlete, Why Every Successful Student Needs a Coach. So, and we talked in the last segment a little bit about your life, and which wasn't always easy, which wasn't always smooth, but got you ultimately into a full ride scholarship to college and then into medical school. You're now a physician in St. Louis, an OBGYN, and you along the way have been asked for a lot of advice about raising kids. And interesting that you don't have any of your own, but yet you have helped a lot come into the world.
Yes,
thousands, or over hundreds, I guess, over 1,000. So the book, Educational Athlete, is on the premise that we can coach our kids in baseball, football, any sport, but we don't always think about coaching their brain.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So, like you said, the premise behind Educational Athlete is to train our brains the way that athletes train the body. Like we talked about in the last segment, is I'm from an inner city, I'm from East St. Louis, and many times when you, in order to get out of cities like East St. Louis, is via athletic scholarships. So what I wanted to do was kind of change the narrative, change our thinking to say, okay, if you focus on education and academics, starting young, starting our kids very young, just like we do with Pee Wee basketball and Pee Wee baseball. We start training them, getting them tutors early, getting them coaches early, then they're more apt to be successful. The same hours that we put into practice should also go into preparing for education and things like that. You know, my parents spent hours, you know, on end at track meets, at basketball games. You know, I have a nephew now who does track, and you know, we spent hours out there in the sun. You know, my stepmother will pack up things, you know, for knowing that we'll be out there for hours. But how many parents actually do that for education, where they're willing to sit out in the sun and really put in that hard work to watch our children practice mathematics and English the way that they do for basketball or track.
So you took all this advice that you've been giving out, you put it in a book, and so tell us about what's in the book and how people can find it.
So I put the book in frequently asked question format. You know, there are certain questions that parents ask me, and then there are certain questions that parents don't ask me that I felt I wish I had known early on, and maybe I wouldn't have bumped my head along the way. So I put it in that format to show parents what they can do when they reach certain milestones, when they reach certain difficulties, meaning like one, motivation. How do we motivate our students? You know, how do we keep our students away from distractions? That's one thing that a lot of people will comment on about me, is that I'm not easily distracted. I'm very focused. So I really wanted to give that to parents and to youth to say, okay, these are some things that you need to do in order to be for your child to be more focused, and also to stray away from distractions, how to accomplish goals despite failure. You know, that's something that I remember calling home and my grandmother really couldn't deal with, was that, you know, if I called and said, you know what, I studied so hard and I didn't do well on this test, and I could just hear that she wanted to help me, but she couldn't. So how is it that I wanted to give as a parent, as a tip, this is how you deal with your child when they actually fail. You know?
She wanted to help you deal with the emotions behind failure, but she didn't know how to do that.
Right.
So how do we help our kids with that?
How do we, because essentially a child will fail at something.
The only way to succeed is to fail. Otherwise you don't know if you've succeeded, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that was one thing that I felt was very important to put in the book, how to deal with failure, you know, how to coach your child through that. And if it's something that you don't know, then get a coach. You know, there were so many things that my father and my mother couldn't teach me. So they said, you know what, I may find someone else who knows how to coach you along that way. You know, there's so many youth who actually reach out to me via LinkedIn or social media. And I said, you know what, that's a great thing that you guys are doing, because they, you know, they can't find anyone where they are. So they said, you know what, I'm going to go to social media. Find a coach.
Yeah, and that's great that you've been able to give back so much. Now, we could talk for hours on this topic. I know we could. I have a lot of questions, but you're going to be speaking to the public this next week. So tell us about that, where people can hear you.
Right. So next Monday, I'm having a book signing at the St. Louis County Library. It's in Frontenac. It's their headquarters location. And it's Monday, 7 p.m. I'll do a presentation followed by a book signing. So
you're going to talk about some of these questions and how you address them, and the questions that people aren't asking, which is super interesting. So we'll save that for the Monday night library presentation. So Dr. January, thank you so much for coming today. Really appreciate you coming, and it's so great to have a successful St. Louis woman here in our studio. We love that. Dr. January will sign copies of her book on August 6th at 7 p.m. at the St. Louis County Library headquarters in Frontenac. There's more STL Live after this, so please stay with us.